to exaggerate answers. Hence, you're assured of more accurate responses during your interview, and you're provided with specific information to use a little later down the line when checking references. The unpredictable course of a behavior-based interviewing exchange may sound something like this. You. Tell me what you like least about being a manager at your current company. Candidate. Oh, it's definitely having to discipline, lay off, or terminate employees for poor performance. We've had a lot of restructuring in the past year or so. You. Sure, that's understandable. I agree that's no fun. Tell me about the last time you had to terminate someone for cause. What were the circumstances, and how did you handle it? Candidate. Well, the most recent term for cause in my group happened about 4 months ago when a member of my staff just couldn't or wouldn't focus on his job. He made continuous errors on the manufacturing line, and it seemed like no amount of training or supervision could get him to focus on his work and lessen the breakage and scrap rate he was experiencing. You. Oh, that's too bad. Tell me more about it. Candidate. Well, I first went to the union steward and gave her a tip that he was having continuous problems because I knew that they were friends and that he trusted her. I thought she might be able to help him and quietly find out what was really bothering him. I also asked her to give him the Employee Assistance Program, EAP brochure, to make sure he had resources available to help him if personal issues in his life were getting in the way. Unfortunately, she came back to me a few days later and said he wouldn't let her in. Then she reminded me that since she was a union steward, she really couldn't be involved any further in any activities that could have negative ramifications for a union member, which I fully understood. You. Interesting. What was your next step? Candidate. Well, I then decided to go straight to the employee with his prior year's performance appraisal in hand. He had scored 4 out of 5, meaning that he had really done well, and I told him that I couldn't give him a 4 if I had to grade him right now. I honestly told him that if the performance evaluation period were right then and there, he'd probably get a score of 2, meaning that he didn't meet company expectations. I told him the good news, though, was that it wasn't the time for the annual evaluation and that it wasn't too late to turn things around. I just wanted to know if and how I could help. Unfortunately, he wouldn't open up to me either, so we just left it at that. You. Did he realize he was heading down a path of termination? Candidate. He certainly did. In fact, I ended that meeting letting him know that my door was always open if he needed anything, but that if there were any more problems with excessive breakage and scrap rate, I'd have no choice but to go to Human Resources and look into writing him up for substandard job performance. He even seemed apathetic when I said that. You. So it sounds like you were very fair and open with him. What is it about you that made you want to speak with the union steward and employee first before going to Human Resources to initiate disciplinary action? And so the story goes. What's important in this exercise is to see how comfortable and fluid the interview was. It was more of a discussion and getting-to-know-you meeting rather than a formal, structured Q&A session with rote responses to one-dimensional questions. The key to a good interviewing style sometimes lies in making candidates feel comfortable enough to admit, well, I really wouldn't typically say this in an interview, but since I'm so comfortable with you and since you're asking, I'll tell you. If you can establish rapport quickly and really help the candidate feel like she can put her guard down because you're deciding to decide together if this opportunity is a right fit, then your interviewing skills will leapfrog past your competition. You'll also develop a reputation as a caring and concerned leader. After all, the leadership factor should always come into play during the very first interview. In addition, it's always healthy to add self-appraisal questions to your behavior-based questioning techniques, which will add an honest and somewhat critical dimension to the candidate's responses. You can do that by simply using probing or follow-up questions. So your conversation might continue with additional queries like these. How would you handle it differently if you could do it all over again? Could you argue that you either jumped the gun or waited too long to initiate progressive disciplinary action? How would your boss grade you on how you handled this deteriorating performance situation in terms of your willingness to confront the problem head-on? In retrospect, was going to the union first a mistake? What kinds of downsides could it have caused? What did the union say about your supervision in the grievance process, and what were its arguments to either avoid termination or to